The past is a foreign country. They do things differently there. That's LP Hartley, and it really makes you think, doesn't it? What happens when that foreign country, the past, is seen so differently by two sides today? And those differences aren't just, academic debates. They're actually fueling major geopolitical tensions right now. How do we even start to unpack that? Welcome to the Deep Dive. This is where we take, well, a whole stack of sources and research like the excellent analysis from First Post we're using today, and we try to boil down to what really matters for you. So today we're diving into something really critical, the rising tensions between China and Taiwan. And this isn't just about today's headlines or military moves. It goes much deeper. It's profoundly rooted in completely different stories about history, about sovereignty. Our goal here, our mission if you like, is pretty straightforward. We want to unpack the core arguments from both Beijing and Taipei. We're sticking closely to the source material, laying out what each side claims.
The idea is to help you quickly get a handle on these arguments, understand the history behind them, and see why this matters so much for, well, global events. And for those of you studying for exams like the UPSC, getting these nuances, these conflicting views, is absolutely vital for current affairs and understanding geopolitics. We're not picking sides here. Just presenting the arguments clearly, giving you the context.
Yeah, and what's really striking is just how tangled up identity, history, and sovereignty are in this. It's not just politics. It feels more like, an existential thing for both sides playing out globally. The very meaning of China and Taiwan, that's the ground being fought over.
Okay, so let's start with that core disagreement. Sovereignty and identity. Beijing's view, as our sources show, is pretty blunt. Taiwan, despite being democratic, is their own territory. Full stop. It's a fundamental belief for them. And because of that, they argue you can't really invade land you already consider yours.
Right. It's a rhetorical position designed to shut down certain arguments from the start.
And tied into this, they have, well, a very strong dislike for Taiwan's president, like Ching-te. They call him a separatist.
That's definitely Beijing's foundation on this. And if you look at the bigger picture, it means any move Taiwan makes towards more autonomy. Well, Beijing doesn't see that as a nation asserting rights. They see it as an internal rebellion, secession. It's why their foreign minister, Wang Yi, sounded quite alarmed talking to European ambassadors. He said Taiwan's ruling party is trying to move towards independence, calling it very dangerous. For Beijing, it's about national integrity.
The one China principle. It's not just policy, it's their whole claim, isn't it?
Exactly. It underpins everything from their side.
Okay, but then you've got President Lai's perspective from Taiwan, which is completely flips that narrative. He talks about uniting the country, meaning Taiwan itself, and says Taiwan is, of course, a country already. He argues China has no legal or historical right to claim it.
And this is a really key point he makes, one that often gets lost.
What's that?
He says Taiwan's future, that can only be decided by its people democratically, not by any political party, not by any president, whether in Beijing or even in Taipei.
Right. And he clarifies Taiwan independence just means not being part of the People's Republic of China.
Yes, and that distinction is crucial. It's often misunderstood. Lai isn't talking about declaring some new independence. He's saying Taiwan is already distinct, self-governing, and, crucially, has never been ruled by the PRC.
So it's about the present reality for them.
Exactly. It's a statement about how things are now, not some radical future plan. And it rests entirely on democracy, on the will of the Taiwanese people, which, directly challenges Beijing's claims based on history and territory.
So if the present is about sovereignty claims, it really seems like the past is where the arguments get, well, really sharp. This brings us straight into that historical battleground, the competing stories. China, our sources point out, bases its claim on some very specific historical points.
Very specific, yes.
Wang Yi, the foreign minister, didn't just express worry, he anchored it in history. He said Japan had stolen Taiwan back in the 1890s.
And that's not just a throwaway line. For Beijing, it's central. They argue Taiwan's return to China was agreed upon, specifically in the 1943 Cairo Declaration, and then confirmed at Potsdam in 1945, right before Japan surrendered in World War II.
Okay, so they lean heavily on those wartime agreements.
Absolutely. You have to remember, Taiwan was a Japanese colony from 1895. That's historical fact. So from Beijing's viewpoint, Taiwan coming back to China was a direct result of winning World War II.
Part of the post-war settlement.
Exactly. For them, it's settled history tied up with their narrative of national recovery after, the century of humiliation.
Yeah.
So their conclusion is firm. The matter is very clear. Taiwan is part of China.
But then Taiwan pushes back with its own powerful historical narrative, one that directly challenges that settled fact. You mentioned the Republic of China, the ROC, founded way back after the 1911 revolution that ended the empire.
Right, ROC.
And it's that government, the ROC government, that fled to Taiwan in 1949 after losing the Civil War to Mao's communists.
Yeah.
And the ROC is still Taiwan's formal name.
Still is, yes.
President Lai makes this really pointed comparison, doesn't he? Highlighting the timelines.
He does. He says, look, the Republic of China, it's 113, going on 114 years old. The People's Republic of China, only about 70 years old. He says, it's simple and clear.
That's quite a statement. It's more than just dates, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. It's a claim to historical seniority, to legitimate lineage. By emphasizing the ROC's longer history, Lai is essentially questioning the PRC's right to be seen as the sole successor to China.
And therefore questioning their claim to Taiwan.
Precisely. It hits right at the core of identity. And Taiwan's defense minister, Wellington Koo, he tackled this directly too. He talked about China trying to distort history, and he made a really specific point.
Advice.
That the war of resistance against Japan, that was led and won by the Republic of China, the ROC, not the People's Republic of China. He says this is without a doubt.
Okay, that war of resistance point seems incredibly loaded. Our sources mention China invited some old ROC soldiers, veterans who fought for the Republic of China, to a WWII anniversary parade in Beijing. But Taiwan explicitly said they do not want them to attend. Why is that such a big deal?
Well, it's a very calculated move by Beijing. By inviting those ROC veterans, they're trying to sort of absorb the ROC's victory against Japan into their own PRC narrative.
Like claiming that entire history as their own.
Exactly. Claiming the whole war of resistance legacy for the PRC. It's an attempt to rewrite history to bolster their claim as the one true inheritor of China's past, and therefore its territory.
So Taiwan objecting.
Taiwan objecting is fiercely defending its own distinct historical identity. They're trying to stop that absorption. They want to maintain their narrative. The ROC is separate. It continued. It's legitimate, and it won that war.
So even anniversaries become part of this war of words.
Absolutely. Every symbol, every commemoration can become a battleground.
So bringing this back to today, these historical clashes, they're not just abstract. They're fueling real tension right now. We're seeing a definite increase in military and political pressure from China over the last, 5 years?
Oh, definitely. A significant step up. And it's not just talk. We've seen multiple rounds of large-scale Chinese military exercises, war games around Taiwan. There was a major one back in April.
And it's more than just the big drills, isn't it?
Yes. The pressure is constant. China's Air Force, its Navy, they operate around Taiwan on a daily basis, sometimes sending dozens of warplanes, practicing maneuvers that look a lot like encirclement or preparations for attack.
It's not just training then.
It's hard to see it as just training. It's a constant projection of power, a daily reminder of their claim over Taiwan. It's psychological pressure, a strategic campaign running alongside the historical arguments.
And when China was asked about U.S. comments that these drills look like practice for an attack, the spokesperson from their Taiwan Affairs Office, Zhu Fenglian, she just pushed back hard. She said, Taiwan is a part of China. There's no invasion to speak of. Same message again.
Right. It's that consistent line. This is internal, stay out. Which, of course, raises huge questions about international law, about intervention. If Beijing defines this solely as an internal issue, then any outside action, diplomacy, arms sales, even statements gets labeled as interference.
The biggest worry.
The biggest worry, clearly, is that all this pressure, these drills, this rhetoric, it increases the chance that Beijing might actually try to take Taiwan by force one day. And if that happens, our sources are clear, it could ignite a regional war, possibly even wider. The historical narratives are literally setting the stage for potential conflict.
Okay, so let's try and pull this together for you, the listener. What we've really seen today is that this China-Taiwan situation is this deep, ongoing war of words. And it's rooted in fundamentally different ways of seeing history, of claiming sovereignty. It's more than politics. It's about national identity itself. Who is China? What is Taiwan?
Yeah, and the so what? For you, maybe you're prepping for UPSC, tracking current affairs, or you just want to understand the world better. The key takeaway is how much the interpretation of history matters, how stories about the past are told, claimed, used. They actively shape today's geopolitics.
So understanding the different sides is crucial.
Absolutely crucial, especially now with so much information flying around. You need to see the different perspectives to grasp international relations, power dynamics, all of it.
And as we finish up this deep dive, here's something to think about, something stemming directly from this clash of histories. If historical narratives are so fundamental to today's sovereignty claims, how can nations possibly reconcile these different pasts to build a more stable future?
Is a shared understanding even possible? Or are these truths always going to be contested, always fueling tension? What role does diplomacy or international law even play when the foundations are so disputed?
Well, we hope this deep dive, drawing on sources like the First Post analysis, has given you a clearer picture of just how complex this is. If you found this useful, please do like and subscribe to the deep dive. And definitely leave us a comment, questions you have, or maybe other complex topics you'd like us to tackle. Your feedback really helps. Until next time, keep digging deeper.